The medal ceremony had been over for 3 hours, but Sergeant Major Cole Mercer still hadn't left the empty hall. He sat in the back row, the bronze valor pinned crookedly to his chest, watching the maintenance drones sweep confetti into neat piles. "They told me I would find you here." The voice came from behind him, soft, melodic, with an undertone that vibrated slightly outside human hearing range. Cole didn't turn around. "They told me a lot of things today," he said. "Most of it was bullshit." The Velorai female moved into his peripheral vision. She was small by her species standards, barely reaching his shoulder, with skin that shifted between pale blue and silver depending on the light. Her large eyes, the color of deep water, studied him with an intensity that made his jaw tighten. "I am Kiravel," she said. "I have been assigned to you. I didn't ask for an assignment, no." She moved to the seat beside him, folding her thin limbs with practiced grace. "You asked for nothing. Command decided for you, as they do." Cole finally looked at her. Young. That was his first thought. Too young. The Velorai aged differently than humans, but the slight translucence of her neck membranes, the way her bioluminescent markings hadn't fully darkened, she couldn't be more than the equivalent of 19. Maybe 20. "You're a companion," he said flatly. "That is the human term. My people call it Valderis, the bond that walks. I don't need a companion. I don't need a bond. I need to be left alone." Kiravel tilted her head, and for a moment those deep water eyes seemed to look through him rather than at him. "The soldiers who need to be alone are precisely the ones my kind are sent to. This is not punishment for you, Sergeant Major. It is..." She paused, searching for the word intervention. Cole stood abruptly. The chair scraped against the polished floor. "I've survived 4 planetary campaigns. 11 ship-to-ship boardings. I watched my entire squad die on Horizon's edge while I hid in a cargo container because those were my orders." His voice didn't rise, but something in it sharpened. "I don't need a babysitter." "No," Kiravel agreed, rising with him. "You need someone who will not die." The statement hung between them, stark and terrible in its simplicity. "My species has certain durabilities," she continued. "We do not break easily, physically or otherwise. That is why we are chosen for soldiers like you. Soldiers who have lost too much. I haven't lost anything. I completed every mission, yes." Her voice dropped to something almost gentle. "You completed them, and you kept completing them long after the part of you that cared stopped existing." Cole stared at her. This small, blue-skinned creature who spoke as if she could read the contents of his hollow chest. "What exactly are you supposed to do? Follow me around? Report on my mental state? I am to be present. That is the first requirement." She reached into the fold of her robe and produced a small crystalline device. "These are your new quarters assignments. We will share space, not sleeping quarters. I understand human privacy needs, but adjoining rooms. I will be nearby. For how long? Until one of us dies. Or until you ask me to leave and genuinely mean it." Cole took the crystal, turning it over in his scarred fingers. "And if I ask you to leave right now?" Kiravel's mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile, but something adjacent to it. "You don't mean it. Not yet. You're testing me, seeing if I will fold at the first resistance." She began walking toward the exit. "I will not. I was not chosen for you because I am fragile, Sergeant Major. I was chosen because I am stubborn, difficult, and entirely unimpressed by human displays of emotional armor." She paused at the door, glancing back. "Your belongings have already been moved. I took the liberty of arranging your books in the new quarters, alphabetically. You may rearrange them by publication date if you prefer. I noticed that was your previous system." Then, she was gone. Cole stood alone in the empty ceremony hall, holding a crystal that contained his new life, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Annoyed. 3 weeks into the arrangement, Cole discovered that Kiravel did not sleep the way humans did. He learned this because he woke at 300 hours, as he always did, nightmares throwing him out of unconsciousness like a faulty airlock, and found her sitting in the common room between their quarters, her eyes open and focused on nothing. "You don't have to keep watch," he said, his voice rough with sleep deprivation. "I am not keeping watch. I am resting." She didn't move, didn't blink. "My species enters a state of semi-consciousness every few days. We process information, organize memory structures, regulate biological functions. It is similar to your sleep, but we remain aware of our surroundings. Cole lowered himself onto the couch across from her. Sounds exhausting. Being aware all the time. It is. But it's also why my people make effective companions. We notice things. What kind of things? Now she did move, a slight turn of her head, those water-dark eyes focusing on him. You talk in your sleep, Sergeant Major. Cole's stomach tightened. What do I say? Names, mostly. Jackson, Rivera, Chen. You apologize to them, over and over. She paused. Last night you said I should have been in the container with you. You repeated it 11 times. He should have been angry. Should have felt invaded, exposed. Instead, he felt only a dull exhaustion. They're my squad. Were my squad. They died on Horizon's edge. I know. I read your file. Then you know I was ordered to survive. To observe and report. Command's exact words were acceptable losses for strategic intelligence. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. My squad was an acceptable loss. I was strategic. Kiravel said nothing for a long moment. Then, on my world, there is a concept we call Vethylin. It translates roughly as the weight carried for those who walk ahead. When someone dies before us, we carry their weight. Their unfinished moments. Their unlived futures. Sounds heavy. It is. But it is meant to be. She rose from her seat, moving with that eerie grace toward the small kitchen unit. Tea? Cole blinked at the abrupt shift. It's 300. You are not sleeping. I am not sleeping. Tea seems appropriate. He watched her prepare the cups. Human tea, he noticed, not the bitter Velorai brew she preferred, and felt that annoyance again. But underneath it, something else. Something that might have been gratitude, if he remembered what that felt like. The first mission briefing is at 600, she said, handing him a cup. A reconnaissance operation on one of the moons of Kepler 442b. Low risk. Primarily, observation. I know. I read my own briefings. I will be accompanying you. Cole nearly spilled his tea. You're not a soldier. No, Toddy. I am a companion. And companions stay with their assigned humans. She settled back into her seat, wrapping her long fingers around her own cup. This was in the terms of our arrangement. Did you not read them? I read them. I didn't think Command would actually... He stopped. This is insane. You'll be a liability in the field. Perhaps. She sipped her tea calmly. Or perhaps I will see things you miss. Velorai perception extends into spectrums humans cannot detect. I may prove useful. And if you get killed, then I will have died doing what my people consider the highest calling. Accompanying someone through their darkest path. She met his eyes, steady and unflinching. There are worse ways to end, Sergeant Major. Cole wanted to argue. Wanted to list all the reasons this was a terrible idea, a violation of protocol, a risk to both of them. But her expression stopped him. That look of quiet certainty, of someone who had already calculated the costs and found them acceptable. If you die because of me, he started, then it will be my choice. Not your burden. She set down her cup. You carry enough of the dead, Cole Mercer. You do not need to carry the possibility of me. It was the first time she had used his name instead of his rank. He didn't correct her. The moon was supposed to be empty. The reconnaissance mission was supposed to be simple. Land, deploy sensor equipment, monitor for 3 days, extract. Low risk. Primarily, observation. Command had been wrong. Cole pressed himself against the crystalline rock formation, his rifle tracking the movement of hostile contacts 50 meters below. Syndicate forces. At least 24 heavily armed, apparently using this supposedly barren moon as a weapons cache. And he had exactly 3 Marines with him, 2 wounded, plus 1 Velorai Companion who should never have been here in the first place. Sergeant Major. Kiravel's voice was barely a whisper beside him. The larger formation is moving northeast. They haven't detected us yet, but the patrol route will bring them to our position in approximately 7 minutes. I can see that. No, Dio. You can see part of that. She pressed closer, and he felt the strange coolness of her skin against his arm. There are 4 additional hostiles in the cave system beneath us. They are using thermal dampening, but I can sense their bioelectric signatures. They're positioning for an ambush. Cole's grip tightened on his rifle. How certain are you? Entirely. He glanced at her, at this small, blue-skinned creature who had insisted on accompanying him into what was rapidly becoming a disaster, and made a decision. Johnson, Reyes. We're moving to secondary extraction point. Chen, can you move? Private Chen, clutching her bleeding shoulder, nodded grimly. I can move, Sergeant Major. Kira, stay in the center of formation. You see anything else, you tell me immediately. Understood. They moved through the crystal forest in tactical formation, the alien landscape casting fractured light across their path. Cole kept Kiravel in his peripheral vision, watching for any sign that she was slowing them down, becoming the liability he had predicted. She didn't. Instead, she moved with a fluid efficiency that surprised him, anticipating the squad's movements, identifying cover before he could call for it. Twice she touched his arm and pointed, once to a sensor tripwire nearly invisible against the crystalline ground, once to a sniper position on a distant ridge that he had missed. They were 200 meters from extraction when the syndicate found them. The first shot scattered crystal shards like shrapnel. Cole dropped behind cover, returning fire, shouting orders. Johnson went down. Chest wound. Bad but survivable if they got him to evac. Reyes was pinned, Chen covering her with one working arm. And Kiravel was exposed. She stood frozen in the open, a perfect target, her eyes wide with something that wasn't quite fear. More like processing. Like she was seeing something the rest of them couldn't. Cole didn't think. He moved. 3 rounds impacted his armor as he crossed the open ground. The 4th found the gap between plates, burning into his ribs. He didn't stop. His body collided with Kiravel's, driving them both into cover behind a jagged outcropping. What the hell were you doing? He gasped, blood warm against his side. There are more coming. Her voice was strange, distant, resonant. Through the caves. 37 hostiles. They're using the same route we plan to extract through. Cole's blood ran cold. That's not possible. The sensors are designed for human technology. These weapons are not human. She gripped his arm, her cool fingers pressing hard enough to leave marks. We have to go deeper into the crystal forest. There's a formation half a kilometer northwest, a natural fortification. If we can reach it, we can't move Johnson that far. Not with hostiles on our position. I can. Cole stared at her. You weigh 90 pounds. Velorai musculature is denser than it appears. I can carry him. You cover our retreat. Kira, Cole. She said his name like it meant something. You told me I would be a liability. Prove yourself wrong. Let me be useful. He wanted to refuse. Every instinct screamed against sending her into the open, letting her take a risk that should be his. But Johnson was dying. Reyes was pinned. Chen was one-handed, and his own blood was painting the crystal ground beneath him. Go, he said. I'll cover you. She moved like liquid shadow, crossing to Johnson's position, while Cole lay down suppressing fire. He watched her lift the Marine, 200 pounds of man and equipment, and carry him as if he weighed nothing. Her thin frame should have buckled. It didn't. They made it to the crystal formation as the second wave of syndicate forces crested the ridge. Cole held the narrow approach, while Chen and Reyes tended to Johnson. And Kiravel sat beside him, reloading his spare magazines with fingers that never trembled. You're hit, she said. It's not bad. You're lying, yes. She pressed a field dressing against his ribs, her cool hands steady. You stepped in front of me. You were exposed. You could have died. So could you. He met her eyes, those deep water eyes that had annoyed him from the first moment they met, and saw something there that made his chest tight in ways. That had nothing to do with the bullet wound. I don't let my people die. Not anymore. I'm not your people. I'm your companion. Same thing. Her fingers paused against his side. For a moment she just looked at him, this small, stubborn, difficult creature who had inserted herself into his life and refused to leave. The extraction shuttle will be here in 18 minutes, she said finally. If we can hold this position, we'll hold it. He checked his rifle, counted his remaining rounds. And then you're buying me a drink. Companionship services should include alcohol. Her mouth curved into that almost smile. I don't think that's in the terms of our arrangement. Consider it a renegotiation. They held the position. The extraction shuttle arrived with close air support. Johnson lived. Chen kept her arm. Reyes filed a report commending Kiravel's tactical awareness and physical capabilities under fire. Cole spent 6 days in medical, the bullet wound complicated by a cracked rib he'd ignored during the retreat. Kiravel visited every night. She didn't speak much, just sat in the chair beside his bed, her eyes open in that semi-conscious rest state, processing and organizing and remaining aware. On the 4th night, Cole woke from a nightmare to find her hand resting on his arm. "You talk in your sleep," she said quietly. "I know. Tonight you said my name." Cole looked at her, at this creature who had carried a dying Marine, who had guided them through an ambush, who had sat with him through nightmares she didn't have to witness. Was I apologizing? No. Her fingers tightened slightly on his arm. "You were asking me to stay." The debriefing took 4 hours. Command wanted every detail of the ambush, every failure of intelligence, every tactical decision. Cole gave it to them in his flattest voice, while Kiravel sat silent and watchful in the corner. Afterward, Admiral Chen stopped him in the corridor. "That Velorai of yours," she said. "She performed beyond expectations. She's not mine, isn't she?" The Admiral's eyes were knowing. "Companions choose their assignments, Sergeant Major. The program likes to present it as military allocation, but the Velorai select their humans. She asked for you specifically." Cole stopped walking. "Why? You'd have to ask her." "But if I were guessing?" The Admiral shrugged. "The Velorai believe in what they call matched damage. They choose humans whose brokenness complements their own. Makes them wonder what she's carrying that matched her weight." The Admiral walked away, leaving Cole standing in the corridor with too many questions and too few answers. He found Kiravel in their shared common room, arranging his books. Again. She'd switched them from alphabetical to chronological by acquisition date, a system she couldn't possibly know unless she'd been paying very close attention to the wear patterns on the spine. "The Admiral says you chose me." Kiravel didn't stop her arranging. "The Admiral is correct. Why? Because you were the most alone person I had ever seen." She placed the last book and turned to face him. "I am very familiar with being alone. You have a whole species, a culture built around companionship." "Yes. And I was exiled from it." Her voice was steady, but something in her posture shifted, a vulnerability he hadn't seen before. "I committed what my people consider a grave sin. I formed a bond without permission, with someone who died before the bond could mature." Cole moved closer, drawn by the weight in her words. "What happened?" He was a human scientist, working on a joint research project with my people. We were not supposed to interact beyond professional necessity, but he was... She paused, searching. "He saw me, not as a cultural asset or a strategic alliance, just as Kira. And I saw him. He died? Lab accident. Equipment failure." Her bioluminescent markings flickered. Something he'd learned indicated emotional distress. "I was supposed to transition out of the bond naturally over time. Instead, I chose to carry his weight, to honor what we had, even though my people considered it improper. Shameful. That's why you were assigned to military companionship. Punishment. Die. Rehabilitation. My people believe that forming a proper bond will heal the damage of my improper one." She met his eyes. "They also believe that bonding with a human who cannot be saved will break me entirely. It's a gamble they're willing to take." Cole felt something cold settle in his chest. "They think I'm the one who'll break you? They think you're too damaged to form a true bond. That I will waste years trying to reach you and fail, and that failure will cure me of my inappropriate attachments to humans." Her almost smile returned, but it was bitter now. "They do not know you, Cole. They see the files, the psychological evaluations, the mission reports. They don't see the man who threw himself in front of bullets for me, who holds his squad's names like prayers, who apologizes to the dead because he cannot forgive himself for living. Kira, you watch me sleep." The words stopped him cold. "When I enter the rest state, you watch me. Every night. You check my breathing. You adjust the temperature in the room because Velorai prefer it cooler. You removed the light panel near my rest space because you noticed it disrupted my bioluminescence cycles." Cole's throat tightened. I didn't think you noticed. I notice everything about you. That is what companions do. She stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the coolness radiating from her skin, smell the faint mineral scent that clung to her species. But you are not supposed to notice me in return. Not like this. Humans in our program are meant to accept our presence without engaging. You engage. Every day. Every small kindness. Is that wrong? No, Twai. Her voice dropped to something raw. It is what I was exiled for wanting. A bond that goes both directions. A companion who is also companioned. They stood there, in the small space between their separate quarters, surrounded by carefully arranged books and the detritus of two lives learning to orbit each other. I don't know how to do this, Cole said finally. I don't know how to let someone in without waiting for them to die. Then we learned together. Kiravel reached up, her cool fingers brushing his jaw. You talk in your sleep. You apologize to ghosts. You carry weights that should have crushed you years ago. And you watch me carry them. Yes. And I will keep watching. Because that is what bondmates do. She held his gaze. My people sent me to be broken by you. Instead, I think we might be meant to break each other open, to let something new grow in the cracks. Cole thought about 4 years of nightmares, of names recited like prayers, of the hollow place in his chest that had forgotten how to feel anything but mission parameters and acceptable losses. I don't know if I can be what you need, he said. I don't need you to be anything. I just need you to stay. To let me stay. Her hand dropped from his jaw, rested over his heart. Can you do that? The question hung in the air between them, weighted with everything they had both lost and everything they might still find. Cole covered her hand with his own. I talk in my sleep, he said. I know. I might say your name again. I hope you do. I might not apologize this time. Kiravel's almost smile finally became a real one, small and quiet and entirely for him. Then I will stay awake to hear it. Outside their quarters, the station hummed with the business of war, troops moving, ships launching, the endless machinery of conflict grinding forward. But in this small space, a man who had forgotten how to live learned to reach for someone who had been punished for reaching first. And in the morning, when Cole woke without nightmares for the first time in 4 years, Kiravel was still there. Watching. Waiting. Staying. Both of them finally companioned.